Of course, dear friend, settle yourself now. Let your breath slow gently. Let your eyelids grow heavy. The world outside can wait. There is nothing to do but rest. Nothing to carry but quiet. The wind has quieted the candle, flickers gently on the sill. And in the distance beyond the trees, a river hums in its low, endless voice. It all be still now. Let your chest rise slowly and fall even slower. There is peace in the soft silence and that stillness. Our story begins. Our story begins in a village carved gently into the bend of a river. A village so small the map forgets it, so quiet that birdsong carries for miles before being met with another voice here tucked beneath a weeping willow that leans its green arms over the stream. There stands a forge, not grand, not loud, but old dead stones are. Warm from centuries of fire, its roof bowed slightly from the weight of many winters, its windows hazed with soot and time-and. Inside, beneath the heavy beams, works a man named Thalin, is a bellmaker, the last of his kind in this part of the kingdom. His hands are worn not just with age, but with purpose. His skin is bronze burnished and smells faintly of ash and oil. His eyes are the color of cooled iron, and they see everything. He speaks, rarely smiles often, and moves as if the forge itself breathes through him each morning before the village stirs, before roosters lift their songs into the mist. Thalin walks to the river, dips his fingers into its cold water, and listens not for fish, not for wind, but for stories, because Thalin believes, as many old men do, that the river remembers everything, every word, every footstep, every broken promise, and every wish ever whispered over skipping stones. And sometimes when he listens just right, he hears what is needed today. The river is quiet. But Thalin already knows tonight is the night he will cast his final bell. He has waited not for his hands to fail, but for the moon to be right. Because old belief, true belief, says that to make a bell strong enough to silence a storm, the bronze must be poured beneath a full moon, and no other light may touch. Thalin has waited 12 years, and now, at last, the time has come. The forge has been swept clean, the crucible washed with sacred wine, the molds lined with rosemary ash, and the door, the old wooden door, is barred from the inside. No one may enter until the bell has sung its first breath. It's said that the very first tone of a storm bell carries power. Not from the metal, but from the silence it breaks as the day wears on. Villagers pass the forge in soft steps. Some leave flowers, others leave folded prayers. A child places a feather at the threshold. Another tucks a slice of honeyed bread beneath the sill. They do not knock, they do not peek, and they simply wait, because they all know that, in a land often visited by fierce winds and thunder that splits the hills like bread, a bell like this could mean the difference between ruin and renewals. Twilight descends, and shadows stretch like sleepy cats across the road. Thalin begins his ritual. He lights the forge not with flint, but with a taper drawn from the village's shrines. A fire comes to life slowly, patiently. Not in a roar, but in a hum, the kind of flame that listens. He melts the bronze slowly, adding tin by hand, whispering the same verse each time the ladle dips. He speaks not to the metal, but to what it will become. A bell is not just sound, it is memory, and every bell Thalin has ever cast carries a story, one for a chapel where children learned to sing, one for a ship that never returned, one for a wedding where the bride walked barefoot through doofus. This final one is for silence, the silence that follows storms, the kind that settles gently over broken branches and muddied earth, the kind that wraps around grieving hearts like a woolen cloak. This bell will not ring for celebration, nor for warning, will ring only when the sky forgets kindness, and the clouds roar too loudly for hope. Midnight nears, and the moon rises clean and full above the willows. Its light touches the windows of the forge, slides over the tools, and comes to rest upon the mold. Thalin takes the crucible with both hands, its handles wrapped in layers of linen and prayer. He walks slowly, each step measured, each breath drawn with care, and He pours the bronze flows like honey-thick molten olivet, fills the mold with a whispering hiss, a sound that is not quite steam, not quite song, and then stillness. The metal rests sand. Thalon kneels beside it, his hands folded, his forehead touched too. The floor outside, the wind stirs soft breeze, nothing more, but above the hills the first dark clouds begin to gather. Of course, dear friends settle once again into softness. The wind outside hums low. The fire still whispers in its cradle of stone, and your body can sink deeper, deeper into the hush. We return now to the forge, where the moonlight holds its breath, and the bell waits for its first voice. Sethalon does not rise quickly. He remains bowed beside the mold, his breath long and even, like waves against a harbor wall outside. The night deepens, the village sleeps, but something watches in the wind. The bell must cool, untouched. That is the old Wayno sound. No light, no hand, only patience. The forge dims, not from lack of flame, but from reverence, and in that hush Thalon begins to hum, not a song, not a tune, but something older, a hum taught to him by his grandmother, who learned it from her father, and his from a wandering bellmaster who once walked barefoot from the coast. The hum is not meant for ears, but for bronze. It speaks of stillness, of echoes that choose when to be heard, of sorrow and healing. He hums through the night. Stars shift, the clouds inch closer, and just before dawn, the bell sighs only. Once a single tone so faint it could be mistaken for memory. But Thalon hears, smiles. He knows the bell is ready. He does not rush to release it from its mold. He prepares warm cloth oil pressed from the last olives of autumn, and gloves stitched by his own hand. When he finally lifts the mold, the bell is warm still, but commit rests in his hands like a heart too old to beat, but still alive in its knowing. The bell is not large nor ornate, is simple, round, its surface unmarked except for one symbol pressed near its crown, a curl of wind beside a line of rain. Thalon places it gently upon a cradle of birchwood and waits, because the final step is not casting, it is listening. He sits beside it, eyes closed, and listens for the tonesome bells speak quickly, eager to be heard. Others wait years, but this bell speaks before the sun fully rises. Tone is soft, low, the sound of rain on the roof when you are wrapped in wool, the sound of someone returning home after too long. Thalon breathes, weaves things, whispers, "Thank you." He oils the bell, wraps it in flax, and cradles it like a child as he opens the forge door outside. The villagers are gathered, not with cheers, but with silence, respectful, hopeful, wrapped in shawls and stillness. Thalon steps out, holds up the bell on. The wind lifts, gently, not fierce, but warning. Clouds coil above the river, begins to stay. Storm is coming, not now, but soon on. They must be ready. Thalon places the bell on the tower hook above the forge, a place no bell has ever hung before. He fastens it himself, hands steady, and then he returns to his bench, and sits. The storm arrives 2 nights later, wind howling like wolves, rain hammering on roofs, lightning crackling through the fields. It is strong but not cruel. Not yet. The villagers gather in their homes, children wrapped in arms, old hands gripping prayer beads, and when the storm's roar becomes too loud, when fear creeps in like cold through the shutters, Thalon rises. He steps outside into the wind, into the rain, and he pulls the cord. The bell sings only once, but it is enough. Stone drapes over the village like a quilt, low, deep, laced with stillness, and the storm pauses just slightly, then grows quiet. The rain continues, but softer, more willing. By dawn, the sky clears. The village breathes into bell, hangs silent once more, but known. Close your eyes, gently let the hush find your heartbeat again. The storm has passed, and in the stillness that follows, we return to the Bellmaker's quiet forge, and the soft rhythm of lives touched by sound and silence. Morning light comes like a breath held all night. It slips through the windows of the forge, touches the oil-darkened floorboards, and warms the soft metal hum of the bell still hanging in the air. Thalon wakes before the birds, not because he must, but because That's when the world is most honest. He opens the door and steps out barefoot. The grass is damp, the air is clean. And his first smile of the day is for the bellet. Does not ring again, it doesn't need. Toit's voice was heard, and that was enoughin'. The days that follow, the village walks a little slower, children laugh more easily. Even the animals seem quieter, something has shifted. Softly, permanently, the storm did not break them. It passed through and left them whole. Thalen returns to his forge. But he does not light the fire, he begins to clean, not hurried, not mournful, just present. He oils the handles of his tools, wraps the hammer that belonged to his father in linen, and places it on the shelf where it can rest. The bell mold he used, he buries beneath the willow tree, the same tree that brushes the river. Each dusk some tools are given to apprentices in the next town over. Others are left in a small chest marked with a carved wind sigil should anyone ever come seeking the knowledge again. He is not leaving, but he is finished. 4 years villagers still visit the balsam, bring flowers. Others place a palm to the iron bracket it hangs from, as if to feel its memory. No one tries to ring it again. They all remember what it sounded like, and memory, real memory, does not need to be repeated to be real. The bell is not forgotten, it becomes part of the stories told beside the hearth. Part of lullabies whispered in winter, part of the quiet pride people carry when strangers ask, is it true that your village has a bell that calms the sky? And they smile softly and say, yes, yes, it's true, but it only ever rang on. Thalen lives many more years. Quiet ones, gentle ones. He tends the garden behind the forge, breeds a line of slow, kind-tempered hounds that wander the village freely. He teaches a few young ones how to listen to metal, but never how to cast. That knowledge, he says, is not for learning, but for asking. If the time ever comes again, the river will tell them one spring. Long after the last snows, Thalen takes a walk. He climbs the hill behind the village, the one where the wind meets the sky, and he does not come back, not right away. The villagers find only a smooth stone, laid gently where he last sat, carved with the same curl of wine sigil, and beneath it the tiniest bell they've ever seen, made of silver strung on flax. Its tone so faint you can only hear it if the air is still enough to hold your breath. It rings once each year, only once, always during the first storm of spring. No one knows how, but everyone hears Etevan. The new children, even the old ones who forgot names but not sound, and when they hear it, they breathe a little easier, hold each other a little closer, and whisper thanks, not just for the bell or the man who made it, but for the quiet, the hush, the gentle knowing that someone once kept a promise and made silence a safe place against sleep. Well, now let the story fade like embers in the hearth. You are safe here, wrapped in stillness, held by the hush and cradled by the echo of a bell that only ever needed to ring once. Good night.